Thank you. I'm going to start out by saying what I always say at these settings. And the reason I always say it is because the truth is the truth. And the truth is that the Corner Bookstore has been an incredible friend to this class over, I have to count how many years. I think we did the first event here in January 1998. So it's been 15 years and dozens of books that have come out into the world to meet their readers and their buyers at the Corner Bookstore. And no writer could ask for a better set of friends than Lenny and Ray and Nick and everyone who's here and who curates the new books coming out so carefully and advocates so eloquently for them. So it's wonderful as always to be back. And the continuity of the classes here, we have several of this year's students out here listening to one of the students from the class of 1999. And every book has its own story, and every writer has their own journey to publication. And in Dina's case, this book is a monument to both the amazing history of the Little Red Schoolhouse, which I'll leave Dina to tell you about, but also to her amazing persistence, which I'll tell you something about. I know Dina sometimes feels a little bit shy about the fact that the book is dated 2013 and her diploma is dated 1999. I don't think that's anything at all to feel needs explanation. It's something that actually deserves praise, because one thing I always say to my students is that there's no award for the fastest book. I mean it, and there's only an award for the best book. And Neil Sheehan took 20 years to write A Bright Shining Lie, and Diane McWhorter took 18 years to write Carry Me Home. And when it's all done and the book is out, the only thing that matters is the quality and also the grit of the author in seeing it through all the lonely work that it takes to get to a night like this. And Dina is a living testament to an author who kept believing in a book, in the importance of its subject. Public Affairs, her publisher, is a great testament to a publisher who kept faith with an author when, in these days, a lot of publishers, frankly, probably would not have. And it makes it a special cause for celebration here tonight. So with all due felling, that famous literary term, I will turn this over to Dina Hampton.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm so excited to be here tonight to talk to you about the lives of three extraordinary people in this book: Tom Hurwitz, Elliot Abrams, and Angela Davis, and the no less extraordinary school that they found themselves in, somewhat against the odds considering their differing backgrounds, in the early 1960s. The founder of the school, as many of you know, because many of you have connections with the school, was Elisabeth Irwin. She was born in 1880 in Brooklyn to a well-to-do family. After attending Smith College, she moved to Greenwich Village in 1903 and found herself among a group of artists and radicals and social reformers of every stripe that were at the first blooming of the Greenwich Village's bohemian flowering. She started as a freelance reporter and then studied as a psychologist and a social worker. And inspired by John Dewey, she and a partner, Louis Marks, ran a series of model classes and schools within the public education system, based on the progressive theories of John Dewey. Irwin and her compatriots railed against the role of rote memorization and strict discipline of the day. She believed that children should read and write and do sums on their own timetable, and that it was even harmful to force them to do it faster. She believed that their emotional development was as important as their intellectual development. She said that the most important thing that a school could do was get children into the habit of being happy. Most importantly, she believed, and her fellow progressive educators believed, that a school must instill in children's minds the ability to think independently, so that they could participate fully in the American democracy. In 1932, Elisabeth Irwin's classes were at PS 41, which many of you probably know is on West 11th Street, still is in the Village. And the city at that point withdrew its funding from the experiment. And the parents were so upset that their children would not be able to take classes with Elisabeth Irwin that they banded together and in something that's famous in the school lore, at a parents' ice cream parlor, they got together the money, or started to get together the money, to start their own school. And so in September 1932, Little Red Schoolhouse opened on Bleecker Street. And 10 years later, in 1942, shortly before Elisabeth Irwin's death, untimely death, Elisabeth Irwin High School opened on Charlton Street, a few blocks south of Little Red, in what would decades later become Soho. So then a few years later, in the 1950s, the parent body of Elisabeth Irwin and Little Red made up a roll call of the cultural and artistic society of the day. Playwright Arthur Miller was a parent there. Woody Guthrie was a parent there. Walter Bernstein, who wrote Magnificent Seven, he was a screenplay writer, and Failsafe and many other well-known screenplays, was a parent there, as was Abe Polanski, who wrote many film noirs. Also a parent was Abel Meeropol, who, with his wife, had adopted the children of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who were executed in 1953 for espionage. Abel Meeropol, by the way, also under the name Lewis Allen, wrote the song Strange Fruit that Billie Holiday made famous. So it was a remarkably talented group of parents there. So the parents of Tom Hurwitz, who's one of my protagonists, his parents were among that group. Leo Hurwitz was a documentarian of sort of a radical stripe, and his mother was a principal in the Martha Graham dance troupe. So I will read you a little bit about him. See if I can see. As a young man, Tom looked at his parents' wild ride through the Depression with envy. With his liquid brown eyes and full lips, and his wiry brown hair brushed into submission and parted on the side, Tom was by turns a dreamy and stubborn youngster who, like his father, couldn't bear to concede a point. In some ways, he was a typical child of the 50s. He owned a suede leather jacket with fringe and a Daniel Boone fur hat with a tail around the back, said Jane, his mother. And he had the biggest collection of toy guns of every sort. When I spoke to my analyst about it, he said, "Let him have them. He won't want to have any more of them when he grows up." But the death of the Rosenbergs was an ongoing and unspoken terror that pervaded Tom's childhood. One day, he summoned up the courage to broach the subject with his father. "Could they get you and Mom?" he asked. "No," his father reassured him. "We're artists." Although Leo's response was not particularly on point, Tom was somewhat comforted by this response. But Tom's fear for his parents did not keep him from participating in political causes. He and his classmates spent many Saturdays picketing the Midtown Woolworths, protesting the 5 and dime segregated lunch counter policies in the southern states. Picketing Woolworth was an unofficial requirement at EI, recalled Regina Nadelson, class of 62. Elliot Abrams, another protagonist in my book, was also in the class of 65 with Tom. And he was a middle-class boy from Queens. His mother was a school teacher, and his father was an immigration lawyer. And they were middle-of-the-road Democrats, New Dealers. And his mother enrolled Elliot in the school in 9th grade, having heard of the school's reputation. So, In most American high schools in the early 1960s,